Hello and welcome to Ethereum Classic Community Call number 42. Today is the 7th of November, 2025. This week we're going to be continuing the discussion about ETC implementing a 1559-like mechanism. And if you didn't listen to last month's call, we recommend listening to that. With us on the call this week is Cody Burns, Phil, and Stacy. If any of you would like to introduce yourselves, please go ahead.
Okay, let me introduce myself first. So I'm Phil from Bitmain, and I'm also the in charge of the ETC ecosystem of the Bitmain, and also an embedded software developer in the at Bitmain. And today I'm going to join this meeting to take a participant of the let's say EIP 1559 discussion, and it's my honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
And I'll go next. I'm Cody Burns. I'm a board member on the Ethereum Classic Cooperative and help with just general community development and ecosystem things. Happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Cody.
Hi, I'm Stacy. I'm also from Bitman, and I'm working with Phil together. So basically, I will just like listen to your discussion today, and we will see what we can do next to make ETC better. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. And I'm Istora, long-time contributor to ETC, and currently trying to shape discussion for the next step for ETC. And we're now focusing on this 1559 question, of which there are a number of different options that we will be exploring in this call. So I guess just as a recap, in the last call, if I remember correctly, we basically got to the conclusion that we probably want something like 1559 for compatibility and interoperability with upstream Ethereum in terms of opcalls and wallets and integrations and that kind of thing. So the next question is exactly what kind of mechanism we implement, because we can't copy exactly Ethereum in that they're burning the transaction fees, and that would mess with the Ethereum Classic emission schedule. And because we have the ECIP 1017, which implements an emission curve, we kind of rely on transaction fees in the future to incentivize mining. So we need to figure out a way of how to integrate transaction fees without fully burning them in the future. That's my position, at least. As far as I understand, we have 4 options on the table at the moment. One is smoothing over a period of blocks, which was discussed in one of the papers. Again, you can reference the notes for last week. Another is Olympia, which is a treasury system. Another is an idea I came up with since the last call, which is a kind of reservoir system. And another that Corey talked about potentially is a hybrid approach, combining the different mechanisms together. So that might include Olympia plus smoothing end blocks, or just a combination of the above. So were there any other options on the table before I continue discussion and talk about Olympia? Or are there any other comments before we move ahead?
No other options I'm aware of.
Well, I guess the other option is do nothing, but that would definitely prevent us from the advantages of being interoperable with Ethereum, and I think we kind of decided that wasn't a good option. So we didn't get much chance to talk about Olympia last month. So I thought it might be a good time to like open up discussion about that.
Sure.
Yeah, so I guess the main thing that I already alluded to was the transaction fees and relying on those in the future. And I pasted a link into the chat about visualizing future rewards, both the block subsidy and the total block reward, which is the subsidy plus the transaction fees. And if we assume there's no transaction fees at a fixed price of 20 US dollars per ETC, we see that the total block rewards are going down considerably in the next few years. If we only rely on the emission curve. So either the price has to go up a lot, in which case the problem is shifted further into the future, or we need to utilize the transaction fees in some way as a more sustainable incentive for miners to mine further down the line in the future. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts on how Olympia would be able to be integrating some kind of long-term incentivization mechanism.
Yeah, it's a problem, I guess, for all blockchains. It's not as much of a problem for Bitcoin because it has a good price right now. But if the block reward goes down, then that's what miners are. At some point, there has to be a point of crossover where the transaction fees are making more than the block rewards are. I don't think we're on a path to see that with our current volume of transactions and all of these things. The way to get more transactions is to have more things going on and more development. And that's kind of the impetus behind Olympia, is creating a community DAO where people can make proposals and get funding and go do things like write blog articles or keep the software up to date and things like that. So the things that are the non-glamorous parts of blockchain and open source projects, trying to fund that. And doing it off of the transaction reward is the Olympia twist on it. So there 1098, I think, was the treasury proposed by IOHK a few years ago. And that was taking from the block reward. And it runs into the same problem that you would have that the miners will run into eventually, of the block rewards go away. And if there's not transactions, then there's no incentive to continue development. Using the smoothing is a good way of keeping a persistent or a constant stream of miners mining. If you know that someone's made a large investment in infrastructure, they're going to keep mining something. And so having the smoothing reward is kind of a bonus for continuing to mine ETC for the transactions, because you get a continued reward for however many blocks after the reward or the block you just mined. So it's kind of a smoothing of that income. And so the way that I guess that they would be combined, Olympia and the smoothing, would be that for the base fee, some portion of that would go towards the Olympia DAO treasury contract, and then the remainder would go towards the miners, and then some portion would go towards the smoothing paid out over however many blocks. And I guess the idea behind it is that the security is important. Right now, the block reward's paying for the security, and through the efforts of the mining pools, and the development was taken care of by the people who were here early and forked code, or just different people in the ecosystem that, as we've seen, it's not a sustainable model long term to hope for donations and things like that. So being able to position the ecosystem to support itself is long term is, I think, my big goal in the whole thing.
I see. So the I guess like a starting point would be a 50-50 split. I'm just pulling numbers out of the air at this point, but would there be like a USD based target to fill up Olympia, or would that just be a fixed 50%? And also the actual transaction fees at this point are quite low. Like we're talking a yearly budget of like let's see, I think it's about $1,000 a week is the average transaction fees. So on a yearly basis, that would be 50K, and then if it was half of that, 25K.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Like
pretty paltry compared to block rewards right now.
Yeah. The transaction fees basically would. I don't know if it'd pay for a single person's salary.
Yeah, which is a problem, no doubt. It would definitely not pay for even a single block to get mined either right now. So it's a crisis of, it's like a security problem that we're going to run into at some point that we can see now coming. So maybe that's a way to think about it, is we know that at some point there's going to be a crossover of the block reward is less than the transactions. We want to be able to hopefully say that the transactions are going up and that's why it happened, not because we have no transactions and the block reward went away.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm aligned with the goal of increasing. I mean, essentially, it's the price of ETC that's going to dictate a lot of things and also demand for the chain. And those two variables, can they be shifted by the creation of a DAO is the question that's funded by 50K USD a year.
Yeah.
Or does there need to be some other mechanism? And are we potentially introducing additional complexity and focusing time on something that may or may not work compared to like a more simple thing that provides additional assurance and is less, I don't know, complex?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bootstrapping problem, I think, of when do we need the money or how can we do this? Right now, it is chump change, more or less, what we would get on the transaction fees. But also right now, the co-op still has funding and the ETC DAO also still has funding that is able to support until there are transactions. But that's the really hard part that we have to tackle next. Of if we do get this set up and we know that we'll have funding eventually, someone actually has to start putting in work on this project and make this a real chain. I mean, we have a good narrative. We are the security chain. We've got good principles. Everything is there and in place and working and running. No one's ever put forth that effort to make ETC the viable alternative to people of whenever they're doing these pitches. Like, there's no reason Solana should be a number 3 coin that gets added to banks and things like that, and ETC shouldn't be in the mix too. We just haven't had the, I don't know, presence or something, or the effort hasn't been there to move in, and frustrates me still. But it's also partly my fault. I guess I can take blame for that too. I've never fully committed and leaned in.
I don't think it's not something that anyone's really to blame for. It's macro market realities in terms of this new and emerging space. So I don't think anyone's to blame. I do not think we're in that bad a place actually, because the fundamentals are way more important. market cap is something that can be quite easily manipulated and is not a really good reflection of like how liquid a market is and how things are distributed fairly in terms of the number of holders. And if there's one guy with half the market cap of a coin, then they can easily make it whatever price they want to based on the last trade. So I actually think that ETC is probably more valuable fundamentally than a lot of the coins with a higher market cap because of that, because it's been around for so long and because it's probably one of the fairest distributed chains out there. So I think looking into market cap can maybe like seem depressing, but is not actually that useful of a metric in terms of long-term success.
Yeah, blame might have been the wrong word. I guess whenever, for my day job, currently I'm consulting with a bunch of capital markets institutions who are looking to bring crypto to the American financial markets. I think that's the most neutral way to explain it. And at some point, there's going to be a ratings agency that starts evaluating coins. And Ethereum Classic is hands down amazing on paper. It's been around the longest. It resisted change whenever there was the DAO. It development equivalent to Ethereum. It has proof of work, highly secure. Everything about it is amazing, but it hasn't had the personalities, I guess, to get it taken seriously. I guess I don't have a better way of saying it. It's not one of those.
Yeah.
There are coins that, or groups, I don't even know if I'd call them coins or projects, it's communities that early on did the ICOs. They have a huge war chest now, hundreds of millions of dollars. And the ones that haven't already rug pulled and ended up on a beach in Bali doing development for their blockchain are making the rounds right now, talking at the World Bank, Chainlink's doing things with Swift, and the DTCC. Like, now is the time that everyone's been waiting for all the blockchain and finance stuff. ETC's positioned brilliantly for it, but we're at a problem of all the money was blown on seemingly silly stuff that never mattered. And the people that are left are the ones that were volunteers who were just here for the passion of it. And now we're trying to figure out how to convince ourselves that we should set up funding.
Yep, pretty much. To bring it back to Olympia on that topic, is there not a risk of changing the game slightly with regards to how, like, because ETC is it's like one of the most decentralized coins. It's the most commodity if you're looking at security commodity spectrum. And because there's no centralization, then it's like really difficult to claim that this is like anything other than a commodity. And like looking at the Olympia proposal, I'm seeing like we're going to put like an LLC and some kind of company that's receiving and managing the funds. And I'm like, is that potentially going to open up the whole protocol to additional legal risk and kind of inheriting the properties of whoever's managing that LLC?
Yeah, and that's I have no idea. I'm not a lawyer, so that's definitely a lawyer question. I don't know. At some point, wherever this money comes from or goes to needs to find a way of funding these things. Right now, the co-op does a lot of it. It's right, 40,000 a month to keep all the services online for as far as block explorers, RPC endpoints, websites, other things, personnel. So it has runway. I mean, the co-op's there. It can keep the services going for now until something else gets established. But at some point, that money runs out because it's a not-for-profit. It can't do anything to raise money other than ask people, and it doesn't have somebody out there asking people. So the other way to do it would be to have the Zcash model of the blockchain is able to contribute to a real person who can do this on their behalf, whatever mechanics it is that gets it in place. But the Zcash is a non-profit or a not-for-profit foundation also, but they have millions of anonymous donors because every block counts as a donor. And so that's, I guess my thinking behind the Olympia needs some kind of legal entity. The DAOs and the LLC DAOs are the closest thing from a legal entity right now that matches what would be on chain, but I think it's open to really anything, because Olympia should be a system where coins go into a pre-funded account, and then anyone can submit proposals, and there's a voting process, and then anyone should be able to get funds out of it. The LLC would be there for establishing like a longer term service contract, but it would also have to go through the same process of submitting a proposal, getting public scrutiny, and having to get approved by the members of the DAO. So I wouldn't say the LLC would be special in that regard. It's not like it just gets access to funding.
I see. And with regards to the distribution of voting tokens in the DAO, has that been, how would that initially be kicked off?
It's a good question. Because I don't know, that's another bootstrapping problem, I guess. We could give it to all the coin holders, but there's no guarantee that all the coin holders exist or want to participate or are intelligent enough to make calls on technical decisions. So I'm not sure. I mean, this would have to be definitely discussed. One way to do it would be coin voting. Everyone who has a coin does it. Another way would be to create some kind of NFT or voting token and distribute those in a fair way. But I'm not sure of a way to do it fairly and get consensus.
Yeah. I think it's one of the big problems with, because yeah, if it's just a coin vote, then obviously like whales will be able to manipulate voting, and it's not necessarily like a fair way, but it's the only unbiased way that doesn't require like some other admin system to figure out who to distribute them to. Like coin votes is the only metric, as far as I know, that is completely like objective within a contract system to kick things off. I guess you could have additionally like a registration window where people can use their coins to stake in order to get a token. But then you're also like leaving out the people that have their coins in cold storage and the people that like are not sure whether to use the protocol, and then they're being required to do additional steps that may or may not, work out. So I do think that a lot of the mechanisms of Olympia need to be extremely like well thought out and made explicit, and it seems like a lot of them are not fully formed at this stage.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, also this is the group to solve that. The people. I mean, another thing that I've seen recently, I was listening to on a podcast, is Futurarchy, where it's basically a prediction market where you would lock up your coins for the decision. So if there was for instance, if we knew that something had to get implemented to say make 1559 on the Ethereum Classic blockchain, it could go to a vote, and then the people voting for it would lock up their coins because they think the price of ETC is going to go from $14 to $20. So they could essentially do a short, and somebody else would take the opposite of action because they don't think it'll work out. And so then the prediction market is the voting mechanism of, if enough people have locked up their coins and are in this boat with you, then it passes and you can go. And if it doesn't, then the change never gets implemented. So that would be an interesting way to do it, but I don't know. It's some how do we figure out what the best way is to do this as a group?
Well, I reckon my suggestion would be to like do an implementation first and see if there's something that might work, and do that on like a test net or even mainnet just with small amounts. But until there is a viable DAO setup, it seems like it's kind of getting ahead of ourselves to say like this major update is planned for 2026.
Well, I think it was
Yeah,
planned for
I'll
25. None of us
I
had.
can chime in. I just joined the call. How's it going, guys?
Hi, Chris. Good,
So
thank you.
so it sounds like you're talking about ECIP 1113. Um, and I think that I noticed a lot of kind of how you've been framing things is that everything's set in stone and very detailed. The thing about 1113 is that it's more of a framework. So if you read the proposal, it's not set in stone and extremely detailed because there's many options for many applications of this type of treasury. For instance, it includes the option for child DAOs, where I think one of the concerns that was brought up was, what about the client maintenance, right? Typically, client maintenance isn't very controversial. Um, do you need a robust token weighted coin voting system just to have transparent proposals saying, hey, we'd like to keep EVM compatibility? I don't really think that you need that. And there's an option, to build a child DAO system that allows transparent proposals, allows transparent funding um, requests for that. I think that these are things that we don't have in client maintenance right now. Um, and then you can buy a system or you can build a system that's very streamlined to that. One that doesn't require massive community consensus around everything because we generally operate under the framework that Ethereum Classic is going to maintain EVM compatibility. Um, so I'm just trying to highlight that Olympia, as I think Cody has mentioned numerous times, in writing and on the previous call, is that Olympia is more of a framework to get the changes that are generally required to maintain EVM compatibility. As an example, type 2 transactions uh, are becoming required in wallet systems, which wallet systems to uh, to someone that is maybe an end user, they just think, oh, MetaMask, right? No, wallet systems are like Fireblocks and exchange ecosystems. So to make sure that ETC maintains support, and availability to the global world, you need to make sure that these type of transactions are supported. So
Yeah.
I'm just
So
trying
we
to
did we
highlight
did
that.
cover we covered
Oh,
the
okay.
1559 stuff at the start, and
Gotcha.
we basically agreed that we do need to do this a 1559 style thing, and we're now discussing like the four options. So we have Olympia, smoothing over blocks, a reservoir system, or a hybrid approach. And we're getting into the Olympia part because it's one of many different options, and we just like kind of need to get into the details of how it's actually implemented, because if it's possible then we can do it, but if it's like impossible to do it in a fair way, if there's not one like reasonable approach, then it can't really be one of the options. So is there like one way of doing the fair distribution?
Are you saying for a DAO system? I think it's written right now. It's written as a one address, one vote, and then it mentions that there are many options that provide Sybil resistance and things like that. But it's written in a way where you can set this up and then you can start adding proposals to modify um, for whatever use case you need, right, for the treasury. And that's how it's written right now, because there are many treasury systems that exist right now. And as Cody was just highlighting of, we have to decide how we want those funds to be allocated and sliced up, and the voting systems that we want around the different use cases for those funds. Additionally, as I think you have highlighted, is the type 2 transaction fee market starts at $0. So it's not something that needs to be resolved tomorrow, right? This is not something that needs to be rushed. Olympia is designed in a way that is modular, and you effectively can do ECIP 1111, which is the feed redirect, which is what you are talking about, right? You are talking about the Olympia framework and implementing it. You're saying that it's different with an L curve or something like that, but those are just very minor knobs that we get to tweak and adjust in this framework. So we can do
Well, I mean,
1111 very easily. And
is
then
Olympia
the
is Olympia a treasury proposal, or is it something else? Because to in all the marketing and the announcements, like Olympia equals a treasury.
Olympia has an element in there, which is 1113, which is what do you do with the base fees, which the base fees are not like claimed by the miners, which is what some people have tried to claim, is that the miners have the rights to that. They do not. Um, and it's when these fee what happens with these fees. I believe you were proposing to burn them. And then I believe
No,
you've changed your position on that. And so it's, what do you do with these fees that adds values? And at the time, you've been absent for about a year, but at the time, you know, ETC Co-op was signaling that they were going to be um, reducing their core team, and they were running out of runway. And what happened was, it might have been October, and then it executed in December of 2024. Bob Somerwell laid off reduced his staff after a heavy payroll burn. And then the documents came out that kind of showed where all of those funds were going. And the treasury idea came out of, okay, so we've been talking about this since the last time that Bob Somerwell said that they were going to go under, which was me and you on calls in 2021 or 2022, talking about setting up some long-term treasury proposal, right? And so this is not an idea that came out of nowhere. This is like 10 years of conversation that has resulted in this. Cody in 2021 was suggesting, hey, maybe we should use this base fee um, towards a treasury. And I think at the time in 2021, the idea was, okay, well, let's observe that and see what happens. And we've seen that happen all over the EVM space. People all over the EVM space are using contracts that are doing this, and solving these
okay,
type
but
of issues, which are called public good issues, right? So it's been
these
something.
other
It's a
these other projects are
conversation.
they're not comparable because the other projects, they don't have the same requirements in terms of neutrality and equal footing of the protocol. And unless there's a way to actually implement this
They
in a
certainly
way that's
do. They certainly many
they
do.
don't,
And how
because
can you say that over all of the EVM? You could say some EVMs have a centralized team and
could
things
you give
like
me an
that, but
example?
yeah, they're built into the ECIP. There's plenty of
Right.
examples in there.
what's an example of a treasury system that has equal neutrality and equal footing requirements that ETC has?
Well, for one, I think you need to frame it as right now, are we operating under a decentralized model in our core Geth or in our client maintenance at all? Like,
Is the
is it not
protocol
entirely centralized right now? It's
the protocol?
100% centralized.
Is the protocol centralized?
Is the work that decides what the protocol is that
Doesn't really
centralized?
matter.
Yes.
So that's working on getting more decentralized. Bitmain will be bringing on developers as well. So the development work is getting spread out some.
The question is, can you implement this? Can you change the protocol in a way that implements this treasury whilst maintaining neutrality and equal footing? And I don't think it's possible. Like, so far, the only thing that's been actually proposed is a coin vote.
That's actually not true at all, and that's what I'm saying. I don't believe that you're given a fair assessment of the ECIPs.
You just said in this conversation that to begin with, we just have a coin vote.
No, I said
Then we implement the other
has
things on top.
it explicitly does not do a coin vote because we know that was the IOHK model that required coins and staking. If you remember all of that, it does not do that. It's a one address, one vote, and then you have Sybil resistant systems that you can implement with that, because obviously it would be very easy to fire up a ton of single addresses and vote in however you wanted. So so it's not a coin vote, which is what you keep
Okay,
framing it as.
how
and
does
it says
the
that right there
Sybil,
in the proposal. But it also says, and it suggests many
can you explain
options.
the mechanism?
Right. I just have.
Like, you've said it's Sybil resistant, but how is it Sybil resistant?
No. I'm saying, and then you can implement Sybil resistant systems, which it lists here. Sorry, I have to find the
don't
the
think we're going to be able
line.
to solve it on this call, though. At least, can we take?
What's that?
I don't know if we're going to solve it on this call, but can we?
No, of course
do this as a-
not. And it's
Can we do this as a takeaway? In 2 weeks from now, can we meet back and talk about 3 different options? That way we can at least have something more concrete that we can at least compare and contrast. Because I think right now it's abstract. From a technical level, yes, we could easily put this into the 1559, any of the systems. It's a variable, but the actual implementation, I think, is still open because we don't have a solid, these are the next 5 steps that we would do if we decided for this, or this is the model that we would use. So maybe getting clarity on what the actual model is, we can debate between that then is the next step.
Yeah, that sounds like a great next steps. I mean, I think in this conversation, we've come a long way. A few weeks ago, people didn't even understand that EIP 1559 was necessary for this network, and now people also didn't understand that using type 2 transactions were optional, right? You still get to use type 1 transactions if you wanted to. So I think there's been a great educational onboarding happening. The fact that if we want to start getting into the 1113 mechanics, which it sounds like we're still ironing out the 1111 mechanics
Can we not, in my opinion, like 1113 should come first. Like, we can't really decide how we're going to implement different earlier options unless we have a natural solution that can work for 1113. Because they depend on each other.
Well, it's module. So, and 1113, what's beautiful about that framework is that 1113, so it's actually 1111 is essentially the type 2 transactions and the redirect. 1112 is the immutable contract of the Treasury itself, which are bulletproof. I mean, these are contracts that are tried and tested throughout the EVM space. And then 1113 is not client work. 1113 is a module DAO framework that can evolve to the network's needs as time goes on.
Let's just say
the beautiful
that
thing with that,
113, let's say that 13 is not possible for some reason, because I mean, right now we don't know whether it is, unless you can actually provide some proof that there is a possibility. And if it's not possible,
Istora,
then 12,
there is
12 is
plenty
not
of
possible.
EVMs. You keep saying there's no proof. There's plenty. This is all built on best practices.
But those other projects are not decentralized. They're not Ethereum Classic, and there's no way of implementing this bootstrapping mechanism in a fair way.
Your alternative is entirely centralized. Try to think about that. This is patching an entirely centralized operation right now that is critical to the network. Try to zoom out and think about that. It is 100% centralized around right now, if Diego wants to do client maintenance, you need to think about that. So,
but Diego is not the ETC protocol.
These conversations of funding public goods in a decentralized way are not new. There is so much material on this. So it's just disingenuous to say we don't even know if someone has done this or anything. There is so much material.
Show me an example, then.
As Cody said, is that you're talking about variables that can be adjusted and modified, but it's not framed as, oh my gosh, this has never been thought of before. There are so many attempts and so much stuff to work with. So
I'll provide one example.
A productive way is to at least look at it that way. In terms, and additionally, as you're doing with things like the L curve smoothing and things like that, you're opening your mind in that realm. You need to also open your mind in the 1113 side as well. There's tons of material to read.
Provide one example then of a system that works in a decentralized way that you can bootstrap such an important and currently completely decentralized protocol from.
Right, and the ECIP has many examples in there. Bright ID, Gitcoin passport, proof of humanity. There's so many options here. As Cody was saying, is that there's many options here, and there's going to be so many options. Now that we're ready to have that conversation, we'll have to be sorting through the options. So as we can pick up on another call, if you want a very detailed call on all of these type of options that are listed there, we can start going through them.
It's an extremely important aspect of whether or not this whole thing can be implemented or not. And you're saying, oh yeah, there's so many, we're for sure that one of them is going to be fine. But until we've actually validated that one of them can work with ETC, it seems like we're getting ahead of ourselves.
We're not, because the conversation is evolving right now. Just 2 weeks ago, you didn't believe that 1559 should exist, and you were sending me DMs saying that you were going to fight it to the end, and now you are on board with 1559. So that's the process of you going through consensus, right? And so you're catching up on a conversation, and we understand that. We wrote this. We've done a ton of research on it. So the conversation is evolving there. So if we're going to evolve into, okay, we're happy with 1111 and we're happy with 1112, then we can start talking about 1113 as well. And that's fine, just as Cody agreed with. But just understand that you are coming along with the Olympia framework because you're seeing all of the detail and the technical merit that is going on and how it is adding value to the ETC ecosystem. This is designed to fix a huge problem that we were facing just in December. And it's a problem that we faced numerous times in the past. So I'm just trying to highlight the bigger picture here, that this is not extreme. This is not rushed. This is 10 years in the making.
Very passionate about it. So I guess we're almost at time here. I think helpful for next time would be a blog post with options that we can discuss, 2 or 3 of them. I'll talk with Diego on looking at the 1559 work. So it sounds like in some implementation or another, it's coming. So we need to start looking at how we'll get a test net set up for it. from, I guess, just the tactical things that we can do while we're working on the social consensus for how or if the governance will come into play. So Chris, if you can put together a blog post with 3 or 4 options that we can talk through next time, I think that would be helpful. And then the story, if we could do this again in 2 weeks, would that, well, let me see if America can do it in 2 weeks. Yeah, we're still good. 3 weeks is Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So,
But I think these are useful. I mean,
there's still things that I'd like to talk about if you don't mind, if you have time.
I got to drop in 4
Okay.
minutes. Yes, definitely stay on, keep talking. I think y'all
Still, I mean, Diego still brought up the idea of whether we want to do it in 2 forks or 1 fork. And currently, I mean, I don't know what Olympia's proposing, but it seems like multiple forks. And I think like people have different opinions on how we should do this, and it really matters like getting the whole package. We can't just say, oh, let's create this address and dump things there, and maybe we'll use it in the future if this future voting system works. We need to really figure things out before we actually start proposing that, oh yeah, we're going to do this hard fork next year. Because that's like it.
right. I would just say that I think 11.11 and 11.12 are the client work. The other stuff is outside of the client. So in terms of when you're thinking about a hard fork, you're essentially, it's the redirect and the address or the L curve smoothing are kind of the hard fork client upgrade elements. And then the 11.13 and 11.14 are outside of client hard fork requirements. Also, if Cody has to hop off, I don't know if you guys, for housekeeping stuff, if you guys had talked about the Discord update or any of those things. How is that going? And then and just these calls are helpful, so it's good that you're coming back and hosting these again. So thank you.
Yeah, I guess we can wrap things up now. Thank you for joining. I'm hoping that we can continue the discussion, and I will continue doing the call. With regards to Discord, I did not mention it yet. If you'd like to, feel free to talk about that now. I think we're going to update the Ethereum Classic website to change the default Discord server to a new server.
Right. So I thought maybe you guys had talked about that before I joined. Just because Cody had mentioned that you guys would talk about it on the call. So anyways, it's just a PR and it's just changing the highlighted links to a maintained server that will have active maintainers, will have elevated roles to be able to maintain the server, hopefully spread it out. The current server is owned by a single person named Miko. Miko has just been absent, although I just saw him post something or do something recently, but he's generally been absent for at least since 2023.
Yep, and the current server is basically overrun with bots, and it's difficult to maintain discussion. So
right, and so the only goal is to just put productive conversations in a place that has automated purging of scammers and spam and things like that. And so it's just building a professional setting for chatting. The other legacy Discord is still listed on the website right next to it. Right now, both this Discord is listed. It's the old one is the highlighted one, and we're just changing it so that the highlight on the website takes people to the new maintained one. I think that it's about time now because I believe there's only one person that is maintaining the old server and just moderating the old server, and that's Justin. And it's just the poor guy. He comes in every single day, and it's not hundreds but tens of scams every single morning on the server. So.
Yeah, and hopefully this also opens the door to like more integrations and automations that were not possible on the old server because they require admin access. And things like events being listed and that kind of stuff. So nice things to have. And it's a fresh start and all that.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great point of now with so many new tooling and like all of these LLM agents and everything is that we can add automation in so much. So hopefully that's the goal, and it'd be great if ETC had a lot more automation in its pipelines so that our small little group of contributors can use their time wisely.
Yeah. I did want to mention, as you're on the call, that one of the things that I was kind of sort of unsettled by was the framing of Olympia in its announcements, and the idea that this is a settled thing and that it's going to happen next year, and it made it seem like it was reaching consensus where it maybe didn't necessarily have it. And I understand that I wasn't here for the whole of earlier this year, but plenty of people have made their voices heard, and I don't think it really had the level of consensus that it seemed to be claiming to have on the announcements that have been made on various Ethereum or official-ish looking things. So I just wanted to flag that, and that was the main thing that I was like, what's happening here?
Right. So I think you've been absent. And then I believe you're referencing maybe, is it 2 or 3 more people that have been vocal with you that didn't understand 1559, didn't understand its opt-in, that it's an additive transaction type. I mean, these are non-technical people that have opinions that generally their opinions were reviewed and they weren't even technically accurate. I believe it was, like I said, it was maybe 4 of you guys. But there was a call about this. It was held on Discord, and then that had issues, and then it migrated to Twitter. And that was kind of an initial temperature check on, what became Olympia. So there's been discussion on this. You've been, as I said, you've been away.
I mean, I've been in the
Additionally, the
ECIPs.
Olympia framework has had, over 300,000 views. Generally, most
That's meaningless,
sentiment
man.
is generally positive. And neutral to positive, and then
If you
you
look in the
came in,
ECIP,
you came in and sent me some DMs saying, whoa, you're trying to hijack the network essentially, and it's like, my man, where have you been? you know, what are you
I've
talking
been
about?
I've been the ECIP discussion thread, and the only response is a negative. Like
No,
Hebe
it's
Block
just you and Zhang.
with
It's just you and Zhang.
me and Zhang and Diego. There've been people that have been proposing different things. There's clearly
Diego
no
is not negative. In fact, Diego is working within the Olympia framework, so I'm not sure. But
no
anyways,
anymore.
Istora, and then I think you sent me a threat saying I needed to withdraw to save face. I mean, there's plenty of things that you've done in the since you've came back that are a little hairy, but if your thing is that I was gone and the network started moving through something that's been talked about for about 10 years now, um building some sort of way to fund the critical public goods of this network. It's been something
I
since
mean,
ETC dev, right? The multi-sig address was set up specifically to do this, and they talked about building an entire on-chain voting system to distribute funds. So this is something that since 2016 has been a topic. And what we were facing when you were absent was we were facing 2 of the core developers had just been fired. The executive director left. Donald McIntyre was writing that they're running out of funds and it's going to be up to someone else to handle the maintenance of the network. And it's no longer their priority. It's in one of his blog posts. And so
what I'm
that
saying is
was the
that
climate. That was the
there's
climate
no
that was
way
happening
there's
prior
no way you
to.
could have reached consensus. There's no in less than a year, and you don't even know what the mechanisms are going to be yet for this proposal, as we've discussed on this call. So how, how,
Istora,
how can you claim
you're
that
talking
this
about
thing is happening?
fine details, but you
Extremely
already
important
are on
details.
consensus that 1559 needs to be implemented, right? You're already on consensus with that. See,
Okay,
you've
but that's
already
not Olympia.
moved to
That's not
the
Olympia.
consensus.
That's not
So
Olympia,
I'm
though.
just
That's not
trying
what
to
you
say,
announced.
like your framing of that, oh, I didn't know about it, so consensus wasn't formed, isn't accurate. There's been talk about
That's not what I'm saying.
1559 and implementing a redirect and things like this, and then long-term funding. We understand that type 2 transactions will generate $0 on the day that they are implemented because you have to opt into them, right? And so you're talking about many things down the road, but you're generally starting to come down the path of consensus there. And you
I do
and
not.
the alternative of people that I think it's just been you and Donald are the two that vocal people. Donald is totally for ossifying, which is deprecating the network. These aren't realistic conversations to have. We're not going to ossify. How do you maintain EVM compatibility in ossify? It's an
You're changing
oxymoron,
the
right?
subject. I'm saying that you should not have announced that Olympia, a treasury, is happening next year. That's all I'm saying.
If you're following the conversation, we're already starting to talk about the implementations of a treasury right now. I understand that you might have a hard position where you are against any sort of treasuries, but I'm letting you know
My
right
issue is
now
that
is
you
that
should
the
not have
fact that we're
announced it
talking
happening.
about it right now and on these calls and that we're talking about implementation, this is the final stuff of consensus, right? Of the final implementation stuff. We're already kind of aligned with this general framework. It's already kind of the ethos. And so, I appreciate that you are, doing the due diligence and all of this. It would have been great if you were here a year ago, when conversations and ideas were getting kicked around. But anyways, and you were here in 2021 and 2022 when like this base fee redirection was talked about. So,
I was also
these
there when we both rejected a protocol layer treasury. Ethereum Classic
no,
got
we
built.
didn't. We rejected a centralized hard-coded team
It's a protocol layer
that
treasury. That's the issue.
we
And I
rejected
outlined
rejected
detail.
IOHK's hard coding 20% debt minor tax, things like that. And if you're going to frame any Olympia in any sort of way as comparable to IOHK's proposal, I mean, these are just drastically different worlds with drastically different approaches. No one's trying to hijack the coin reward, right? The block reward. No one's doing that, right? It's a whole system built on type 2 transactions, aligning everyone around a robust fee market, which is good for everyone. That's literally what this entire system's designed about is how do we build a robust fee market so as block rewards go off, miners continue to have incentives, right, to secure the network. So it's just drastically different. So it's difficult when you're phrasing it in this way that paints anyone that's trying to solve problems as, having some negative connotation to their actions. It's difficult, especially when you weren't even present.
Well, I've already explained the
And
reason
and
I'm
now
annoyed.
you've
Can I
positioned
finish?
yourself as the sole person that gets to decide if
I'm not at
consensus
all.
was formed or not.
I'm saying if there's major pushback, then you can't claim that consensus exists.
There isn't major pushback. There's you and Donald.
So are you claiming that consensus over this does exist?
I'm claiming that it's very apparent that there appears
have
to be
consensus?
consensus for this. I think
We do?
that even you are coming to consensus, but you may not realize it right now, and that's fine.
Just to be clear, your position is that we already have consensus on Olympia implementing the treasury, and you were correct to announce it that it's happening next year. That's your position right now.
If that's what you believe, that's what
I'm
that's
asking
what
you if
those
that's your
articles
position.
stated. If that's how you feel. But I
Is
think
that
it's
your
important
position?
for you to realize that
Astoria, you don't get to hijack the network and, oh, it's whatever you say, right? You are not solving problems. You're not solving any
I'm
problems.
not
You
claiming
haven't proposed
consensus over
any
anything.
ECIP. You
I'm
haven't
not
done
claiming
anything.
consensus.
You just realized that. And so that is what it is. This is the
All I'm
only
doing is asking.
logical path forward that has
I
been
disagree.
proposed. This is the only logical ECIP 1000 compliant
Okay.
path that is
Well,
there.
If we already have consensus, why are we even discussing it?
Currently, if you're not realizing with the calls, is that we're actually talking about implementation details right now. For instance, the follow-up call to this is now we're moving on to talking about, like Cody is talking with Diego about implementing the 1111 redirect, and then the details of the little variables in there are what's left to be decided in that. Now 1112 is generally bulletproof because it's just a contract, and it's using open source contracts that are heavily audited, so there's not a lot of discussion there. Now we're moving into the details of 1113, right? So I don't know what you think is happening, but these are conversations about implementation of these elements that were drafted and are the only ECIPs about the future of Ethereum Classic. The alternative which has been proposed is to ossify and do nothing. That is not what's happening here. So I don't know how you want to frame that in your mind, but I'm just trying to. My observation is that these are the things that are happening right before us.
So Olympia is happening next year.
I guess we'll see what when a final block is decided and everything. But as you can see, is that you are literally talking about the implementation of Olympia right now. You're talking about the past two calls. That is what you're talking about. So
I was talking about the implementation of something like 1559.
right,
And
which
in
is
my
part
mind,
of Olympia, which is the
they're
the
different things.
1111.
They're different things, though. Because
They're not.
Olympia is a treasury proposal.
If that's what you believe, Olympia is a framework that's
I mean, that's what you told everyone,
implementing
right? In your
1559
announcement.
and deciding what to do with it. So,
I mean, in all the announcements about Olympia, the main thing is that it's a treasury. So I don't know how you untangle those two concepts.
well, it's modular. So it's good to understand that there's 4 ECIPs. And so you're working
They
through
all
the
depend.
elements of them right now.
They depend on each other, though. So they're not completely independent modules.
Right. 11, as I stated earlier, 1111 and 1112 are the client work. And then 13 is the modular DAO treasury governance work. And then 1114 is the proposal framework. So,
Okay, but if
anyways,
13 doesn't work, then 12 doesn't work. And if 12 doesn't work, then like maybe 1111 is implemented in a different way in a completely different ECIP. So to say that we're already talking about implementing Olympia, I think is disingenuous. Like we haven't decided
I think
whether.
your framing is a bit disingenuous because you're not acknowledging that you are doing that. You're literally talking about, I think the last call was the L curve smoothing, which I think is a good idea, but it's just a minor adjustment of, as Cody said on the call, was, I mean, you're talking about like the percentages of the redirect. And I think that adding long-term minor benefits and helping our security budget through the L curve is a good idea. It's something that wasn't on my radar, and I'm happy that that came up through, I believe it was Diego. And the beautiful thing is that, through these conversations, since we're talking about very minor things, it's very easy to update the ECIPs to reflect that. And the implementation details are kind of going on right now that are ironing those things out. So I mean, that's
what
the
if
reality
these-
that we're in
what
right
if down the
now,
line?
is that
What
is
if down the
happening.
line? Sure. What if down the line it turns out that a treasury is not something that works out, and instead it's only an L-smooth mechanism or something else like that? Is it still
I
called Olympia?
believe that would be a percentage thing, right? That would be deciding a percentage of the L curve smoothing.
What if it's zero
But
to the treasury?
then you'll have to talk about how you decentrally fund client maintenance and things like that. How do you support everything? Because
Same
right
as
now, I
Bitcoin.
think your proposal was to just have Bitmain pay for everything.
I don't believe I have a proposal currently. I'm just saying be like Bitcoin.
I thought that you're in our chats. I thought that your suggestion was that that Whales or Bitmain or something like that would just pay for everything like we've been having. The model that keeps failing every 2 to 3 years.
I'm saying we should emulate Bitcoin and other decentralized chains.
Does Bitcoin have the maintenance requirements as Ethereum Classic?
I don't think that's really the limiting factor for Bitcoin. I think there's plenty of research and funding going on regardless. And actually, like the things that you're talking about, funding with the meager amounts that you'll get from the transaction fees, they're also not going to fund enough.
Right. That's true if you believe that we will not have a transaction fee market. But if that's the case, then we also won't have any network security because the block rewards are going off. So you understand that if you say that there will be no transaction fees, then you're also saying that there will be no hash rate to secure the network. So these are the type of conversations that it's
I'm saying in the medium term.
to tether to reality and try to build the proper incentives, into the system to be self-sustaining in the long term and have a long-term viewpoint, opposed to who's gonna pay for stuff today and it's not my problem, but someone else should put the money in, and I'm gonna tell them how to spend their money, right? And so, the current approach of Donald, for instance, who was receiving $144,000 of those funds a year and then was let go to write blog post articles. Donald, his approach is, well, there should just be a centralized organization that controls all of development on Ethereum Classic. And, I don't think that many people would agree that that's a decentralized and in the ethos of Ethereum Classic. So, hopefully we can take this opportunity to solve those type of things in the long term. There will be stopgaps that are required. Right now, I think Bitmain is hiring, as Cody mentioned, is hiring 2 core developers to try to fill the stopgap while it's necessary. But to say that there's not going to be any transaction fees in the future is a pretty bleak outlook for Ethereum Classic, I would say, Astora. So
When did I
anyways,
say that?
I'm happy to chat with you offline since it's just me and you talking. We can have our differences, but what's nice to see is that it seems like at least the few accounts that had opposition to 1559, even if they technically didn't understand that it's entirely additive and opt-in, and legacy transactions still exist, the legacy free market still exists, all of those things. Those accounts are starting to move over to where it's hard for me not to say that, we're on an inevitable path here. So happy to continue to join the calls, and I'll be prepared with, a few examples of 1113 frameworks that we can start considering for, the initial implementation conversations.
Okay. Sounds good. I would just hope that we can be realistic about the status of this thing, and that the inevitability that you're claiming doesn't really serve to actually make it more inevitable. You can't manifest this just by saying it so. It's going to be a long process, and there's a lot of details to work out, and it might not work, is all I'm saying. So let's see.
Right, Astora, and I just want to mention that Cody, myself, Diego, people that are working on solving these problems and maintaining EVM compatibility are showing up and doing the work. And so you're right. If someone just tried to do a change and didn't follow through at all, or didn't, adjust and think and, creatively solve the problems, I think that would be the case, but that's not what anyone's observing here. So we're seeing problem solving happening in Ethereum Classic, and it's great. It's a great thing. So I hope that you'll continue to engage in good faith, and I think that Ethereum Classic at the end of this will come out very strong, and in a better position than it was when the core team was deprecated after the Spiral update, in 2024. So that's the goal, and it's following the ECIP 1000 process to do so.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a good place, I think, to ask for any final comments. I know we have some other people in the chat room. Did anyone want to jump in before we wrap things up and say your piece, if you have any? I can still see a familiar handle. Is that Brolau?
Hello guys, can you hear me?
Hey, Brolau, long time no speak. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you? Just dropping by to say hi, and I'm glad to see that people are taking a closer look to Chris' proposals. One thing that I wanted to say is that, and I said it, I think some months ago, it's also about the legitimacy the proposers are having, in the sense that it's also somehow political. I think that a path forward is to keep core development in the US area. I think this should be also something to think about, and even if it's under LLC, right, it also gives some sort of legitimacy and accountability about what would be the path forward. As for the voting system, well, I already criticized that. It's complicated, but solutions should be seen. It was nice hearing you all.
Thanks for joining, Brolau, and thanks for the comments. Yeah, I think the LLC is one of the question marks of the proposal, and we didn't get much time to talk about that one. But
Yeah, and
I guess
I'm happy to drop just like a quick note on that LLC and the concept of that, which is derived from, I believe, a community call 11 or 12 back in 2021, 2022, between me and you, and it's just generally in the United States at that time there was a new entity that was brought in Wyoming, was the state. And what it enables us to do is it enables us to legally hold anyone that has to do any sort of fund handling outside of the network. It allows us legal recourse for against them if they were to do something that was not desired by the Treasury DAO system. And so I don't know if that exists in a different country, but it's a legal framework that those people just remember that the 1112 contract is non-custodial and immutable. So the LLC doesn't actually hold any funds or maintain any funds. This is essentially an edge case where if someone doesn't want to receive payment in ETC on the ETC network and they want fiat payments and they want tax forms from a US tax entity for their 1099 work, which is contract work, this is an entity that would be able to take the funds, convert them essentially into US dollars, and then pay that contractor and then issue them a tax form. And so that is kind of the edge case that's going on with that. And so, it's been twisted and confused a little bit where some people believe that that LLC would be the controller of the funds. The ECIP explicitly states that they have no control over those funds. The on-chain process would essentially, instead of paying the contractor directly, would pay the LLC, which would convert it to US dollars and then pay them. So it's just a way. It's called it's like a legal wrapper is I think how people call them these days. But it's a
Yeah.
way to work within the fiat framework and in the hiring process that some companies may have where they do not accept on-chain payments. And anyways, so that's generally what's happening there. And then if you read about it, the operating agreement, you set an operating agreement, you set a contract that's on chain, and that's all registered with the state. If there was any actions that were against what the DAO did, or had voted on, then you'd be able to file a lawsuit against the person that was handling the money and did the actions that weren't voted on, right? So that's kind of it's
So-
a legal protection framework.
How does the protocol elect who controls the LLC?
The protocol does not. That could probably be something that was done within the proposal framework, and so that would be what 1114.
How do we reflect the wishes of stakeholders? How do we determine what people want to do with regards to who gets to control the LLC?
How do we? Can you rephrase? What do you mean by that question?
So ETC stakeholders, miners, developers, people that hold the token, how do they, how in a decentralized way does the decision become made of who gets to control the LLC? And how can their wishes be accurately reflected?
Right. And so again, this would just be through the standard proposal process, right?
Which comes later in 114, right?
Right.
Which relies on 113.
Well, 113 is the on-chain mechanisms, right? The 114 is the off-chain like process similar to how the ECIP has a process. How we have that ECIP 1000, right?
So how do you reflect the wishes of ETC stakeholders in deciding the LLC owner specifically?
I guess I'm a bit confused on what's the issue with the LLC owner. Wouldn't you just be able to put a proposal for that?
Sure, you can put a proposal, but how do you vote on the proposal? Who gets to vote?
Right. And this is what you just asked about of the entire 1113 framework about 15 or 30 minutes ago, right? You're asking
They're
for a
all-
specific on how you want the DAO to be managed, but
What I'm saying is they're all interdependent.
right?
Like
What?
112 depends on 114, depends on 113. And if you can't do 112, then like
Why can't you do 112?
because you need to elect the LLC.
Why do you need to? Why? Why?
I mean, it's part of the proposal. 112 includes the LLC, right? For fiat
No.
interfacing.
No, it doesn't.
I'm reading
What-
112 right now.
112 is the on-chain treasury contract.
And there's a paragraph right here that says off-chain fiat interfacing and administration execution will be performed by Ethereum Classic DAO LLC. That's part of 112.
Right, that it's the ownership of and the proposals and what you're talking about is not part of 1.2. The treasury contract is 1.2. The mention of the LLC that's continuity between the other ones, but it's not defined there. It's not a blocker in any sort of client work at all, because as I just mentioned, the LLC has no control over the treasury contract. That the LLC is only there to, just as if you submitted a proposal and you were successful in a proposal, funds would be released to your address. The same is true with the LLC, of funds would be released to the LLC. Granted, it would be released in a way where they are now required to do some sort of actions, which is like pay a contractor in fiat for work for winning a proposal. So the LLC itself does
So
not
just,
control the immutable treasury contract. I think that's maybe where the confusion is coming from.
I'm not saying they're controlling it, but they are defined in 112.
Right, they're mentioned in 112. You're right.
Yeah.
They're mentioned.
Okay.
It's true.
So to go through the step-by-step process of how this LLC is elected, there'd be some kind of on-chain vote. There'll be a proposal, then a vote for that.
So Astoria, I think what I'm looking up your reference here, and it says, maybe we should just read it. It says off-chain fiat interfacing and administrative execution, where required, shall be performed by the Ethereum Classic DAO LLC, a legal registered entity that operates strictly under binding instructions from the Olympia DAO governance. That would be 1113, with no discretionary authority, right? And so again, this is just a legal wrapper where it's essentially what you see with ETC Co-op, how they take Grayscale's money and then they hold it and then they're paying out developers. It's a way to do that type of off-chain fiat interfacing, but it's legally bound to whatever the DAO decides on chain because of the Wyoming DAO LLC framework.
So you said before that we're already talking about, we've basically decided that we've implemented 112, but this is like a treasury contract, right?
Yeah, well, this is an example of a treasury contract. I believe you said that we needed to have treasury contracts in there, and so we've added an example of that.
Sorry, I said that you need a treasury contract.
No, one of your feedbacks in July was that you wanted more details, and so are you mentioning that? Are you looking at the create to address deviation? What are you referencing out of 1112?
Yeah, so 1112 is the Olympia treasury.
Right.
Right.
And what element are you asking about in there?
How is this treasury contract becoming immutable after deployment? It says it shall remain immutable with no proxy patterns, upgrade hooks, or other owner privileges. So when this thing is defined, how is it upgraded to 113?
Right. So I believe the treasury contract itself is deployed, and then that does not change. And it's the address of the deployer. Well, I guess the DAO framework, my understanding, the DAO framework has the DAO. Sorry. Okay, so the specifications. The Olympia Treasury contract shall be deployed at a fixed deterministic address. This address shall be hard-coded into Ethereum Classic's consensus logic as defined in 1111 as the canonical recipient of the base fee, right? And then
in 113, it says the treasury shall remain immutable with no proxy patterns, upgrade hooks, or owner privileges. Because if it has the ability to be upgraded at this point, then the question is who gets to do that?
right, so you're asking how the DAO upgrades. So this is 1113 and states
Well,
upgradable governance logic. Governance models may be upgraded via on-chain proposal subject to quorum, threshold, and time lock. The treasury contract shall remain permanently immutable.
Yeah.
No admin privileges, no centralized entity shall hold override powers or be able to execute treasury disbursements outside of the DAO process. Right. And so you're asking me how the DAO process works. And,
No,
I think
no.
next call is what we're talking about.
I'm asking how the treasury goes from, like, in your proposal, you're modularly deploying this stuff. So you have 1112, which is the treasury first, and that's immutable. You can't change it. But then later on comes the DAO or some other contract system. How does the treasury get told that now the DAO's in charge? Who gets to control that?
So I think maybe you're asking about the execution logic that's laid out here in 1113.
Where am I looking? No, this is about proposals. I'm talking about the treasury contract. Would you prefer to go into detail in the next call?
I mean, sure. Yeah. It's probably, I think you're asking me a question that's probably better suited for Cody. in terms of the implementation of it, but
Okay.
I'd guess that it's probably written in there. I don't have it right here.
Okay.
And again, what was your question? It was how
How is the immutable treasury contract updated to be informed of which voting token DAO or whatever system, governance system you want to put in there is in control of it? If it's done in a modular way. I guess I can add this to a topic for next week, next month.
Yeah, I think it sounds like getting into 11.13 stuff would be great for the next call.
Just to be clear, this is 11.12, I believe, the treasury contract.
Right, but it's related to changes when you change the 11.13, right?
Well, I'd assume that if it's immutable, there'd need to be a built-in mechanism to upgrade, and that would be part of 1112. Unless you're talking about doing a hard fork, and then it's not really immutable.
Right. And I think I'm finding the section right here. I think it says governance integration. So I think we'll pick up on that. That sounds great. Like great topics for the next call.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for your time, and I'm glad we can have these discussions once again. It's been a while. I do apologize for not being present all the time, but sometimes, you know, you got to balance your life out. But I'm back, so I'll continue doing the calls.
Sounds great. Good to have you back. Same thing going on over here. That's why I missed your last call.
Cheers, Chris. See you next
Cheers.
month. Bye-bye.